This nurse murdered 7 infants and attempted to murder 6 others, all within the space of 1 year. My name's Emma, this is Tiki Bar True Crimes, and I'd like to tell you the case of Lucy Letby. Lucy Letby was born in January 1990. She's an only child. Lucy's birth wasn't straightforward, and she later said to a friend that she is forever grateful to the nurses who saved her life. It's actually one of the main reasons she wanted to become a nurse herself, as she wanted to give back to the service that essentially saved her. Unlike other serial killers, there's no evidence to suggest that Lucy's childhood was particularly brutal. In fact, she had a positively idyllic childhood. It was relatively middle class, they didn't want for much. She wanted to be a nurse, so she studied at the University of Chester, and in 2012 she became a registered nurse and started working at the Countess of Chester Hospital. She was very happy working there and would enthusiastically talk about it to her friends and family. In 2015, Lucy said that she found non-intensive work quite boring and she wanted to be qualified in intensive work. She did her qualifications and transferred into the intensive unit. In June 2015 at 8 p.m, a healthy baby boy who was one of a twin started to deteriorate quickly. Lucy had only been his designated nurse for 26 minutes. Resuscitation attempts failed and the baby died just half an hour later. So within 90 minutes of Lucy looking after this child, this baby's health had drastically deteriorated and subsequently passed away. The nurse who looked after the child during the day was so shocked. She said there were no problems during the day, he was healthy, he was happy. Doctors at the scene said that child A developed a very unusual blue and white mottling on his skin. They'd never seen this before. This symptom later occurred with additional babies, and it's believed to be the repercussion of someone injecting them with air. After these poor parents had just lost their son, they spent the next day with child B, which was his twin sister. They spent all day with her, playing in the nursery and attending to her. They were persuaded to go and take a rest, and shortly after that she collapsed. She was resuscitated and survived, but doctors noticed that she had the same unusual rash on her. It was later discovered at trial that Lucy had fed that baby just 25 minutes beforehand. Within 28 hours, 2 babies had suddenly collapsed with no explanation. Unbeknown to doctors and nurses, it was Lucy Letby. She had attempted to murder 2 innocent children within the space of 1 day. Just 3 days later, another healthy baby boy, child C, who was born prematurely, suddenly collapsed when his designated nurse left the nursery momentarily. Lucy was also in the same room looking after another child. And when the nurse came back in, Lucy was standing over the baby's monitor. Lucy's manager had already told her to focus on her designated child. The manager also stated later at trial that she kept having to pull Lucy away from the family room where the parents were after child C had died. It was later discovered that this baby boy had died after someone injected air into his stomach. Just 1 week later, so we're now on the 22nd of June 2015, child D collapses. This child doesn't just collapse once, they collapse 3 times, and a post-mortem reveals that someone had injected air into their bloodstream. The mother also later testified that Letby had been hovering around the baby just hours before they collapsed. So in 1 month, we now have 4 unexplained collapses or deaths in this unit. And to put this into perspective, they usually only experience 3 deaths per year on this ward. This is very worrying to staff, and not only that, these babies had no issues beforehand. There was nothing that would suggest that they were going to collapse, and when they did, they didn't respond to resuscitation, which is incredibly rare. This real concern led to an informal review conducted by a consultant at the Countess of Chester Hospital. This consultant's review did note that the one common denominator was Lucy. She was on shift for all 4 of these unexplained incidents. This was presented to the trust, however they just dismissed it. They said that these unexplained incidents were likely due to medication errors rather than anything serious. Because of this, no further investigation was conducted and Lucy remained on the ward. 2 months later, in August, a mother walks in to feed her infant and finds Lucy attacking her child. She said the baby was in distress and was bleeding around the mouth. Lucy was just standing there sort of faffing but not really doing anything. The boy, child E, later died. He suffered a fatal bleed and they believe he was again injected with air. Less than 24 hours later, after murdering child E, Lucy turns her attention to child F, who is actually the twin brother. At around 2 in the morning, he experienced a very unusual sudden drop in his blood sugar levels and a surge in his heart rate. The child survived and blood tests revealed that he had an incredible amount of insulin in his system, which he was never prescribed for, nor were any of the babies on that unit. So there was no need for any insulin injections. Even when it goes to trial, Lucy Letby admits that someone must have injected him with insulin. She never admits it to being herself, but there's no other explanation. By this point, one of the leading consultants makes it very clear that he is unhappy with Lucy's presence on the ward and wants her removed. This is dismissed. In September 2015, the unit are celebrating a baby girl's 100th day of being alive. She is child G. They have birthday cakes and banners. On that day, she suddenly collapses, and she then collapses 2 more times over the following weeks. One doctor witnesses her projectile vomiting, and it's so harsh that it hits the chair opposite her cot. He's never seen this before. It's very unusual and he has no explanation for it. Lucy Letby called for help, and when one of the nurses came in, she noticed that some of the monitoring machines had been turned off. Lucy's standing over this little girl's cot. She finds this very unusual. Lucy tries to murder this child 3 times. She survives, but because of Lucy Letby's actions, she is now severely disabled. This little girl is now 8 years old. It was also discovered at trial that Lucy adjusted the baby's temperature to make it seem as though she was more unwell before she collapsed. She also changed admin sheets and things to make it seem as though she wasn't there or on shift. 6 weeks later, in October 2015, Lucy attempts to murder child I. She doesn't just try once, she tries 4 times, and when this goes to trial, she is described as persistent, cold-blooded and calculated. X-rays showed that this child was deliberately injected with air. Lucy went on to send the parents a sympathy card. Not only did she do that, she actually took a picture on her phone. So kind of like a trophy, if you will. Lucy Letby bathed this child for her parents, and as she was doing so, the mother said that she smiled and even offered to take a picture of the dead baby. Lucy also asked and insisted that she attended the funeral, which was denied. So by this point, most doctors on the units are very, very concerned, and Lucy is definitely the common denominator in all of these incidents. They asked the trust for an urgent meeting. This is in February 2016. This urgent meeting doesn't happen for another 3 months. Just before this meeting, Lucy is transferred onto day shifts, and when this happened, these incidents start transferring from the night and start occurring during the day. It seems to be following her. In early April 2016, twin brothers collapse within hours of each other. One of the brothers, child L, had extreme levels of insulin in his system. They said that it was at the very top scale of the ability of the equipment to even measure it. Child M, his twin brother, suddenly collapsed. His heart rate plummeted. And this is thought to be due to someone injecting air into his system. He survived, but unfortunately suffered permanent brain damage. If we note previously, Lucy did try to murder child F with insulin. They survived. And it's interesting with this child that the dose was upped considerably. It's like she wanted to make sure that he passed away. In early June, we have child N, who nearly died after suffering damage to their throat. The baby had been randomly screaming, and the doctors noticed unusual swelling at the back of his throat. The father also said he noticed blood specks around the baby's mouth. The final two cases happened within hours of each other. They were siblings, and it occurred on Lucy's first shift back after she'd had a trip abroad. Child O was a perfectly healthy baby boy. In fact, he was due to be discharged when he suddenly fell very ill. He collapsed. The nurse that was looking after him said that they needed to quickly rush him to the intensive unit. Lucy disagreed, and the baby subsequently collapsed 3 more times and eventually passed away. This baby again doesn't respond to resuscitation, which is incredibly odd. X-rays revealed that again they'd had air injected into their system, and this child also had some kind of damage to their liver, which was parallel to as if they were going to be in a car crash. 13 minutes after child O dies, Lucy is feeding his brother, child P. Child P is also very healthy and expected to go home soon. He suddenly collapses and his diaphragm shatters. Doctors are attempting to resuscitate him and prepare him to go to another hospital when Lucy remarks, "He's not leaving here alive, is he?" Again, a very odd comment to make. The boy subsequently dies. Again, x-rays show that he had had air injected into his system. This was the tipping point for most members of staff. They want Lucy removed from the unit. They're no longer asking, they are demanding. However, the duty executive is insistent that Lucy is fine. There is no issues. She herself says that she will take full responsibility for any babies that Lucy looks after. She has no concerns whatsoever. The trust did, however, conduct a meeting, as they now have 16 unexplained collapses or deaths on their unit. This is well above average and very unusual. However, they conclude that the accusations against Lucy are no more than a witch hunt. They are also very concerned about any police involvement, as this may damage the hospital's reputation. Instead of removing Lucy altogether, they decide to scale back on the number of babies that they take that need intensive care, and they ask the Royal College of Paediatrician and Child's Health to conduct a review for them. However, the trust kind of told the college what they wanted reviewed, and they purposely didn't mention anything about Lucy Letby. They just said they wanted a general review of how the ward runs. Because of this, the report basically said that they couldn't understand why these deaths had occurred. They said there was understaffing, but they recommended that a more detailed investigation is performed into every case. In essence, this detailed investigation was never done. They did ask the medical director of Great Ormond Street, Jane Horden, to conduct it. She didn't have time, and she openly admitted that to them. She quickly looked over it, and she insisted that they looked into at least 4 of these cases, specifically the personnel surrounding them. So the medical director of the Countess of Chester, after receiving these 2 independent reviews, basically both saying that they need to do a detailed investigation, and one specifically highlighting looking at personnel surrounding these cases, goes to the board and says, "Oh, they've just said that it's insufficient staffing and leadership issues. It's just tragic incidents due to the NHS basically being short-staffed and lack of money and resources." They do, however, remove Lucy, and they offer her a placement at Liverpool Hospital. Later, though, she complains about this transfer and the accusations that were made against her. The board agree, They say that it was orchestrated by the consultants on the unit with no hard evidence, and they encourage her to come back to the neonatal unit. Executives also met with her parents in the December and apologised, said that these accusations will be dealt with, and they ordered doctors in the February of 2017 to write an apology letter to Lucy Letby. This is how much denial goes on. They either don't want to believe it because it's going to tarnish their reputation, or they're just ignorant. I'm not sure. So Lucy is now due back into the neonatal unit in May, and in the March, so a couple of months before, doctors and members of this unit insist in police involvement. They want an inquiry, and that is what happens under Operation Hummingbird. So the police start investigating to get to the bottom of these unexplained deaths. And again, to put this into perspective, we now have 16 unexplained collapses within the space of 1 year, when this hospital is only used to around 2 or 3. So in 2018, Lucy Letby is arrested on 8 counts of murder and 6 counts of attempted murder after a year-long investigation. They search her home and find a diary. This diary has initials in it. It seems to be colour-coded, and it matches the incidents that happened at the hospital. It took quite some time for them to officially charge her because they wanted to get as much evidence as possible to make this case as strong as possible. They wanted a guilty verdict. They ended up with thousands of pieces of evidence. I read somewhere that over 16,000 pieces weren't even used at trial. That's how much evidence they had accumulated, from witness statements to documentation. Lucy denied all charges against her and blamed hospital staffing and hygiene. The trial started in October 2022. Several witnesses and doctors asked that their identities were not revealed, which the judge accepted. One doctor in particular that Lucy had an infatuation with stated he did not want to be named. The prosecution said that Lucy was a constant malevolent presence in the neonatal unit. Witnesses included the mother who walked in on Lucy attacking her baby. Lucy turned around and just looked at her and said, "Trust me, I'm a nurse." Police also found that after the nights where these babies had died, Lucy had sent some really odd, inappropriate text messages. For example, "Just won £130 on the Grand National, let's go partying." On another night, she actually just went salsa dancing after child F had passed away. Now, you may think that this might be something to relieve or sort of just not think about it, but you have to appreciate that this shouldn't be happening that much. And when it did, it really affected the nurses. And if a baby had died in your care, would you really be sending texts to a friend saying, "Let's go out partying"? Lucy also searched for the parents of the infants on Facebook. She even tried to look up one of the parents on the baby's anniversary. When asked why she did this, she just responded, I'm not sure. One of the key pieces of evidence was a doctor who said that he walked in when an alarm system of one of the babies was going off. When he arrived, Lucy was there, but she was doing nothing, not trying to help the child, resuscitate him, anything. When asked, what are you doing? Why are you not helping? She said, "Oh, the alarm just went off," which wasn't true. The prosecution also presented evidence of handwritten notes found in Lucy's diary saying things like, "She killed them on purpose. I'm evil, I did this. I killed them. I'll never marry or have children. I'll never know what it's like to have a family." Police also discovered that she kept medical documents relating to these infants that were not even meant to leave the hospital. They believe, again, this is like some kind of trophy, kind of morbid records for the murders that she'd committed. Lucy herself did give evidence. She said that because of the accusations, it really affected her mental health. She believed she was incompetent, and that's why she wrote those notes. It really affected her. It was interesting to note, and it was noted by the prosecution, that the only time that Lucy broke down was when she was talking about herself. She never got upset hearing the deaths of the infants. It was just when the subject matter was on her. Lucy was found guilty on 7 counts of murder and 6 counts of attempted murder. This makes her the most prolific modern day UK serial killer. She was sentenced to life imprisonment and is only the 4th woman in the UK to receive this sentence. Lucy actually didn't attend her sentencing, which meant that she didn't hear the victim impact statements. In response, Parliament actually did change the law and said that convicted criminals are compelled to attend their sentencing hearing, even if force is needed to get them there. If they don't, they face the prospect of even more time in prison. Lucy's defence team lodged an appeal against all her convictions. And on the 25th of September this year, the Crown Prosecution Service confirmed that a retrial could occur on one of the counts of the attempted murder. A trial date has been set for June next year. However, the Court of Appeals still needs to sign off on this. Lucy's motive is still really unknown. She came from a very ordinary background. She was a very ordinary woman. She lived a very ordinary life. Unlike other serial killers where they are perhaps brutally assaulted and abused during their childhood, this isn't the case with Lucy. And I think because of that, because she seems so normal, so average, this let her go under the radar for a very long time, and people refused to believe that she could have anything to do with this. Perhaps because she seemed so like one of us. One of the motives could be that it was like this godlike power, this kind of thrill of being in control of someone else's life. Another suggestion is that she did have this infatuation with a certain doctor, and it was perhaps to gain attention because she was always there trying to help the babies or crying out for help to get him to come over. Although the jury were only asked to deliberate on 7 counts of murder, there were a total of 13 deaths on that unit, and Lucy was present for all of them. Lucy also worked in the Liverpool's Women's Hospital for a time, and while she was there, 2 deaths did occur. Police have said that further charges could possibly be brought against her for this. A number of Lucy's former colleagues and friends just outrightly refused to believe that she could have anything to do with this. One friend, however, was very staunchly on the side of no way, this is a witch hunt, there's no way she could have done this. And then as the trial progressed, she suddenly realised, actually I think she's done it, and she said she duped me completely, and she duped a lot of people into believing that she was this kind, loving nurse. She officially said, I was deceived, as were so many others. And I think that's what's really concerning about this case, is that someone can be in this role and responsibility of a caregiver for such innocent and vulnerable individuals. That is a position of trust, seem so normal and friendly, and do something so horrific. My name's Emma. This has been the case of Lucy Letby. If you like my content, please remember to like, subscribe and comment, and I will see you in the next one.